G'day, g'day. My name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts. Lots to talk about this weekend. Let's dive in and break it down. So, starting with our top 10, our three main stories this week. Number 1, Project Hail Mary. Number 2, Hoppers. And number 3, Dhurandhar, The Revenge. So, we'll start with number 1. Project Hail Mary holds the top spot in its second week of release, dropping just 10%. For a current total of $14.5 million, bringing in another $5.5 million this weekend. Story number 1, that is a crazy good hold. Normally, even a well-regarded movie, you're talking, mid 20%, maybe low 30s. An average movie, 30, 35, 40%. And you'd get up to 55 to 60% drops. That's a bad drop in most cases. Really fantastic hold for Project Hail Mary in its second week. What I expected to be number 1 was Hoppers, opening with $1.7 million for a current total of just over $2.7 million. I expected Hoppers to easily open as number 1, but Project Hail Mary held it off with ease. That Hoppers number is fairly underwhelming. We're going to crack into how Pixar looks and how that opening compares to all other Pixar movies after the top 10. But it's not great. It's like the 5th worst opening for a Pixar movie in Australia. Not counting like 4 movies that opened during the 2020 to 2021 period where things weren't getting proper releases. So Hoppers is the second story. Underwhelming performance, underwhelming opening. We'll crack into those numbers later. The third big story, Dhurandhar, The Revenge, with another $1.5 million, dropping 55% in its second week for a current total of $6.3 million. Those numbers might not look that impressive. 55% drop. Oh, that's bad. Not for an Indian film. Indian films in Australia are normally heavily front-loaded. 80, 90% drops weekend 2, not uncommon. Holding 55% is actually insane for an Indian film in Australia. And that $6.3 million, that makes it the highest grossing Indian movie released in Australia of all time. Total gross. We'll crack into those numbers after the top 10, but Dhurandhar, The Revenge, holy moly, that came out of nowhere. At number 4, we have opening of The Magic Faraway Tree, bringing in $1.3 million. And rounding out the top 5, we have Goat with another $800,000, its third week in release, dropping 43% for a current total of $7.3 million. Moving on to 6 through 10, at number 6, we have Reminders of Him dropping down with another $580,000, its third week in release, dropping 43% for a current total of $4.3 million. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, at number 7, with another $240,000, its second week in release, dropping 51% in its second week of release. That's a more typical bad or horror opening in weekend 2. That's a more usual drop for a horror movie. For a current total of just over $900,000. Opening at number 8 is I Swear, with a $230,000 opening. And at number 9, They Will Kill You opens with $188,000. Rounding out the top 10 is Wuthering Heights, pending what will probably be its last week in the top 10 with another $170,000. Its 7th week in release, dropping 54% for a current total of just over $20 million. So first off, let's have a look at Pixar. It's a big story, Hoppers, opening, expected to do good numbers. If you haven't seen this chart before, I made this up with Elio release last year. This is all Pixar's openings, going all the way back to the original Toy Story in 1995. So this is in its chronological order. You can start right at the left-hand side with 1995's Toy Story that opened to $1 million. A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., all progressively going up. Finding Nemo blew up. It was massive. It was massive everywhere, but it was really massive in Australia. The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, Toy Story 3, Cars 2... My goodness, what a run Pixar had. But you can go right through chronologically. You can see the big ones and the small ones. And then you can see 2020, 2020, 2021, 2022. Those ones released day and date on Disney+. They did get theatrical releases, but they were very small and they were very limited. So we kind of have to ignore those, but they did get released. Soul and Luca got released, I think, in like 2024, 2025. but this was their actual launch. So when we rank them and go highest to lowest, you can see Hoppers is fairly far down the order. If we look at this, the only movies that it opened higher than was Coco in 2017, Elemental in 2023, the original Toy Story in 1995, and Elio last year. Now, it did open better than Elio. That's a good sign. And it did open better than Elemental, which did end up going to make a bit of money. But it's not great. People saying this is Pixar's return to form, not at the Aussie box office. Not yet. We'll see if it's got legs. Elio didn't really have legs. Elemental did. But Hoppers is going head to head with a little movie called Super Mario Brothers that releases this week coming. I'm worried. I'm worried for Hoppers. I haven't caught it yet. I probably will catch it over the Easter long weekend. But just as an FYI, that's how it looks. If we adjust these numbers for inflation, it looks even worse. Only beating out Elemental and Elio. So it's not a great opening. Let's take a look at Indian films at the Australian box office. So these are the highest grossing Indian films at the Australian box office. So all the way back in 2017, Balu Bali 2 made a total, and this is their total run, so it brought in a total of $3.5 million. Padmavat in 2018 brought in $3.1 million. RRR in 2022 brought in about $3.6 million. KGF Chapter 2 in 2022 brought in $3.3 million. 2023 we had Pathan that brought in $4.7 million. Dhurandhar last year brought in a total of $5.6 million. And now Dhurandhar The Revenge, in its second week of release, has already brought in $6.3 million. Sorting high to low, you can quite clearly see. Now, there have been other Indian films released in this time period. This is just the highest grossing of the bunch. But Indian films in Australia tend to have a much shorter box office life. They are out of the top 10 after 2 or 3 weeks at most. And they're out of the charts entirely after, 4-5 weeks. They're in, they splash in the pan, and then they get out. But it's really impressive that this is Dhurandhar The Revenge, the new highest grossing Indian film in Australian history. That's pretty cool. Moving on to the 2026 top 10 at the Australian box office. So the top 10 of everything released in calendar year 2026. So Avatar, that brought in a good amount of money, like 20 odd million in 2026, but it was a 2025 release. It's not on this chart. This is only 2026 releases, and this is why my chart, in my opinion, no offense, Screen Australia, I think this is the way you should do your box office charts. Wuthering Heights stays at number 1 with just over $20 million. Project Hail Mary moves all the way up to second spot in its second week of release with its $14.5 million total, dropping Song Sung Blue with its $11.8 million down a spot. Mighty Supreme goes down to number 4 with its $9.7 million. Scream goes down to number 5 with its $7.6 million. Goat holds steady at number 6 with its $7.3 million. And Dhurandhar The Revenge jumps into the top 10 at position number 7 with its $6.3 million. At number 8 goes down to Crime 101 with its $5.4 million. Hamnet goes down to number 9 with its $5.3 million. And sneaking into the charts is Reminders of Him with its $4.3 million. 2 new entries mean 2 movies get kicked out, an epic Elvis Presley in concert, and Iron Lung both knocked out of the 2026 top 10. Moving on to upcoming releases, theatrical releases, 2nd of April, although some of these movies are sneaking in a day early and opening on April 1st, so check your local cinemas for screenings. The Super Mario Galaxy movie, the much expected sequel to the 2023 Super Mario movie that did massive numbers at the Australian box office, directed by Aaron Holvarth and Michael Jelenic, starring Chris Pratt, Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlie Day, and Brie Larson. Hoppers, you got to watch out for that one. It's going to crush you. We also have The Drama. If a dumb family kids movie isn't your jam, you can catch the latest movie from writer-director Christoph Borgel, starring Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, and Alana Haim. In limited release, so check your local and indie cinemas, we have Dance for Your Life, a music dance documentary from director Luke Cornish about the power of dance. We also have The Corpse 2, a sequel to the 2025 Vietnamese horror of the same name. We have The President's Cake, which was the 2025 release that was Iraq's entry into the Best International for the Academy Awards. And finally, we have Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, a new comedy drama from writer-director Jim Jarmusch, starring Tom Waits, Adam Driver, and Mayim Bialik. Moving on to streaming, we have Star Wars Maul: The Shadow Lord. The latest Star Wars animated series kicks off from Dave Filoni, starring Sam Witwer, Gideon Adlon, and Wagner Moura, and can be caught on Disney Plus on April 6th. We also have Pizza Movie, a new comedy-adventure movie from director Nick Kosher and Brian McElhenney, starring Gatton Maruzzo, Sean Giambrone, and Lulu Wilson. This is a stoner comedy, can be caught on Disney Plus on April 3rd. In returning series, we have Your Friends and Neighbours, returns for its second season after just a year after its first season. Wild concept, Netflix, maybe take some notes. It kicks off on Apple TV Plus on April 3rd. We also have Bloodhounds. Speaking of Netflix not releasing things, Bloodhounds comes back for its season 2 after the first season that aired in 2023. But you can find it on Netflix on April 3rd if you did enjoy the first season. I didn't catch it, but it does sound kind of cool. So, only 2 challenge movies this week, thanks to the combination of having to watch many episodes of For All Mankind for my Season 4 rewatch before Season 5 started last week, and the new Life is Strange game having released, but let's dive into what I did watch. First up was the remake of Assault on Precinct 13 from 2005, directed by Jean-Francois Richet, and starring Ethan Hawke, Lawrence Fishburne, Maria Bello, Drea Di Matteo. On New Year's Eve, inside a police station that's about to be closed for good, Officer Jake Rennick must cobble together a force to survive when the precinct is attacked by an unknown threat. Not too much to say about this one. It was fine, if not perfectly forgettable crime thriller. Nothing too complex, nothing too terrible, but also nothing to write home about and highly recommend. The second and final movie for this week was the 1941 remake of The Maltese Falcon, directed by John Huston, starring Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, and Gladys George. A private detective takes on a case that involves him with 3 eccentric criminals, a beautiful liar, and their quest for a priceless statue. A long-time watchlist movie, and like many timeless classics of that era, it's one you have to be in the right mood to watch. And I was. And this one held up really well considering its age. A lot of movies from this era are very static, with a lot of stiff performances, a lot of stage performances. But this one didn't have as much of that, with Humphrey Bogart and Lee Patrick standing out performance-wise. Really great movie that held my attention throughout, even though, 1941 release, still kicking. Really good film. This week's Cinechums Movie Challenge is about Happy Feet. So movies about dancing or dances, musicals, surprise a dance scene in a movie, things like The Reservoir Dogs, or dance reference in the title. So we've got a few people that have kicked it off with things like Dope or Abigail. We've got Another Round, Tropics Thunder, Cabaret, Dances with Wolves that I watched just last week, Fame, Grease, lots of great movies. Let's have a look at my shortlist. On my shortlist, we've got things like Sucker Punch, Southland Tales, Pulp Fiction, Ballerina, Take the Lead, Alien 3 because Charles Dance is in it, All That Jazz, a few dance movies like Dreams on Fire, Cha Cha Real Smooth, The Red Shoes. We've got lots to choose from, so we'll see how we go. That is it for me this week. Tune in next week where we will be looking at Super Mario Galaxy's numbers, but disclaimer on that, because it is the Easter long weekend, numbers may be delayed, which will delay the episode coming up. So if there is a bit of delay on next week's episode, that will be why. I can't make the show if I don't have the numbers. If I don't have the numbers, I can't make the show. So, but tune in and we will crack over Mario and we will compare it to all the other video game movies that have come out. Trust me, there's a lot. We've done it a few times before, but the last Super Mario Bros. Movie was previously the highest grossing video game movie of all time in Australia, and it was beaten out by a Minecraft movie last year. So tune in for that and we will crack open those numbers. But that's it for me. Have a good one. Watch more movies. Have a good break. Bye.